Our school districts, including Seattle, are really deep underwater fiscally and facing massive layoffs and school closures this year. Special education is the major driver of those deficits. Our children with disabilities are not getting the services they need to be able to learn at their potential. Many children aren't getting any of the services that they should be having, and all of this is due to our state's inability to fund education as our paramount duty under the state constitution. So funding special education is both vitally important for our schools in terms of staying open and as a civil rights issue for all our children with disabilities, which is nearly 20% of our children. Many of our schools have only one state-funded position called a paraeducator or instructional aide under our state funding formula. But the people who are supporting our students with disabilities, often working 10 hours a week to full-time every week with a student, and they are paid dismally low wages, often not supported at all by the state in their wages, and they will be the first people laid off. We also have really high turnover with these people who are spending the most time with our kids because of their low wages. So we'll see layoffs there and the other educational support staff, and of course we'll see teachers laid off. When you're facing a $100 million budget deficit like Seattle, you're talking about likely seeing hundreds of teachers as well as the paraeducators and librarians and other support staff being laid off. If you lose the students' support staff, the person who is there making sure that a student has the behavioral support, for instance, to be able in the general education classroom, two things will happen. One, either they will be removed from the general education classroom, permanently harming them and depriving the entire classroom of the benefits of inclusion, or two, they'll be in there and the teacher in the classroom won't have the support to make sure that a class isn't disrupted and that every child gets time with their instructor and learning. So it's either banish children or it's provide the educators with the support so that the classroom is functioning properly. We have legislation, HB 1310, that would truly come close to fully funding special education. Last year, we asked the state's legislative auditor to review how much our school districts were not getting funded for special education. And the legislative auditor reported to us in January that last school year, our school districts were underfunded for special education to the tune of over $500 million. That's $500 million a year that districts, to meet their legal obligations to provide education support to children with disabilities, were not getting paid from the state and had to try to fund it out of their levy money, depriving the school districts of everything else that levies should be funding. And what the solution is in HB 1310, with the support of the Superintendent of Public Instruction, we would raise the funding formula for special education and make sure that school districts got reimbursed promptly when they spend tens of thousands of dollars for a student's occupational therapist or a speech therapist, instead of waiting to be reimbursed till after the school year when they'll be bankrupt. So that bill is being heard in the House. It was heard in the Senate last week. There is a lot of support for this, but we have to couple it with the revenue to pay for it. And one of the solutions for revenue is a bill I've introduced to properly allow us to increase, for inflation and population growth, the state's property tax. If we had not capped our property taxes at 1% growth, we'd have already been able to fund special education fully over the last 5 years. If we just gotten rid of Tim Eyman's initiative that capped our property tax revenue growth at 1%, if we'd done that 5 years ago, we wouldn't be drowning in red deficit as inflation grew for special education. Success this year is going to be measured by whether or not we have mass layoffs at our school districts, school closures, and whether children with disabilities are going to find that they aren't getting the services they need to be able to succeed in life as promised under federal and state law and our state constitution. That's what success looks like. Students being able to achieve their potential in their school education so that they can succeed in life. And if we have mass layoffs, that can't happen.